Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars through the main screen. His crew had been traveling for 3 months beyond the Kepler drift, looking for new worlds that humans could call home. The ship was one of the newest exploration vessels in the Earth fleet, built for long trips into unknown space. Jake was 35 years old and had been commanding ships for 10 years. He had short brown hair and green eyes that missed nothing. His crew trusted him because he made good decisions and never left anyone behind. Today felt different, though. Something was pulling him forward into the dark space between the stars. "Captain, we have something on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Ben Hayes from his station. Ben was the ship's sensor officer and one of the best Jake had ever worked with. His voice carried excitement mixed with confusion. Jake walked over to Ben's station and looked at the display. There was definitely something out there, floating in the empty space between two star systems. It was big, maybe twice the size of their own ship, but it was not moving and gave off no energy readings. "How far out is it?" Jake asked. "About 6 hours at current speed," Ben replied. "Captain, this thing has been drifting out here for a very long time. The computer estimates it could be thousands of years old, maybe more." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Finding alien technology was every explorer's dream, but it was also dangerous. Humanity had been traveling the stars for 50 years and had never found proof of other intelligent life. This could change everything. "Set course for the object," Jake ordered, "and call the senior staff to the briefing room in 1 hour. The next hour passed slowly as Jake thought about what they might find. He had read every report about possible alien contact, but this was real. When his officers gathered in the briefing room, he could see the same excitement and worry in their faces. Chief Engineer Lisa Kane was a tall woman with red hair who could fix anything on the ship. She had been Jake's friend for years, and he trusted her judgment completely. Dr. Alex Turner was their xenobiologist, a young man who had studied alien life possibilities his whole career. Security Chief Paul Davis was a former military man who kept everyone safe. "What do we know about this thing?" Jake asked Ben. "It's definitely artificial," Ben said, putting up images on the main screen. "The hull shows impact damage from space, debris and radiation scarring. Whatever it is, it has been out here for a very long time. I'm reading some kind of internal power source, but it's very weak." Dr. Turner leaned forward in his chair. "Captain, if this is really alien technology, we need to be very careful. We don't know anything about the beings who built it or why it's here." Lisa nodded. "The ship could have defense systems we can't detect, or it could be carrying something dangerous." Jake looked at each of his officers. "I know the risks, but this is why we're out here. Humanity needs to know we're not alone in the universe. We'll take every precaution," Paul spoke up. "I recommend a full security team for the boarding party. We should scan every inch of that ship before anyone sets foot on it." "Agreed," Jake said. "Lisa, I want you to lead the engineering team. Alex, you'll handle any biological materials we find. Paul, security is your responsibility. Ben, you'll monitor from here and be ready to pull us out if anything goes wrong." The next few hours felt like days as they approached the alien ship. When it finally appeared on their screens, everyone on the bridge fell silent. The ship was beautiful in a strange way, with flowing lines that seemed to grow rather than being built. The hull was a dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and there were symbols carved into the surface that meant nothing to human eyes. "I'm not detecting any life signs," Ben reported, "but there are some areas where the hull is too thick for our scanners to penetrate." Jake suited up with the boarding party and checked his equipment twice. The alien ship had what looked like docking ports, but they were different from human designs. Lisa managed to connect their airlock to one of the ports after an hour of careful work. "Atmosphere is breathable but thin," Alex reported as they entered the alien ship. "Gravity is about 80% of Earth normal. The corridors inside the ship were wider than human ships needed, with high ceilings that disappeared into shadows. The walls were covered with the same strange symbols they had seen outside. Emergency lighting flickered along the floor, powered by the ship's dying energy systems. "This place feels old," Lisa whispered into her comm. "Really old." They moved deeper into the ship, following what seemed to be the main corridor. Jake felt something strange as they walked, like someone was watching them. The feeling grew stronger with each step. "Captain," Alex called from up ahead, "you need to see this." Jake joined Alex in a large chamber filled with tall, cylinder-shaped containers. Each container was made of clear material and filled with some kind of liquid. Most of them were dark and empty, but a few still glowed with soft blue light. "Stasis pods," Lisa breathed. "They're keeping something alive in there." Alex was scanning one of the active pods with his equipment. "These readings are incredible. Whatever is in here has been sleeping for thousands of years, maybe longer." Jake walked slowly between the pods, looking at the dark ones that held only shadows and dust. Then he stopped in front of one of the glowing pods. Inside, floating in the blue liquid, was a humanoid figure. The being looked almost human, but with pale blue skin and long silver hair that moved gently in the liquid. "It's female," Alex said, reading his scanner. "And she's alive. All her vital signs are stable." Jake stared at the sleeping figure and felt something he could not explain. It was like recognition, as if he had been looking for her his whole life without knowing it. The feeling was so strong it made him dizzy. "Captain, we should return to the ship and discuss this with Earth Command," Paul said. "This is beyond our mission parameters." Jake knew Paul was right, but he could not take his eyes off the sleeping woman. Something deep inside him said that finding her was the most important thing that had ever happened to him. He did not understand why, but he trusted the feeling. "We're taking her with us," Jake said quietly. "Sir?" Paul questioned. "You heard me. We're taking her back to our ship. This could be first contact with an alien species. We can't just leave her here to die when her ship's power fails." Lisa looked worried. "Jake, we don't know anything about her biology. Moving her could kill her." "Then we'll be very careful," Jake replied. "Alex, can you safely transport the pod?" Alex studied his readings. "I think so. The pod seems designed to be moved. But Captain, if we wake her up—" "We'll deal with that when it happens," Jake said. "Right now she needs our help." It took 6 hours to carefully move the stasis pod to their ship's medical bay. Jake stayed with it the whole time, watching the sleeping woman's face. She looked peaceful, as if she was having pleasant dreams. Sometimes he thought he saw her eyes move beneath her closed lids, but that might have been his imagination. As they secured the pod in the medical bay, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He was going to wake her up. Jake spent 3 days watching the stasis pod in the medical bay. The alien woman inside had not moved, but her vital signs remained steady. Dr. Turner worked around the clock trying to understand the pod's systems, while Lisa studied the technology that kept it running. "The power systems are unlike anything we've ever seen," Lisa told Jake during one of their daily briefings. "It's not nuclear, not fusion, not even antimatter. It's something completely different." Alex looked up from his research station. "I've been analyzing her biology through the pod's sensors. She's definitely humanoid, but there are differences. Her bone density is higher. Her brain shows unusual activity patterns, and her cells seem to regenerate much faster than human cells." Jake nodded, but kept his eyes on the sleeping woman. He had barely left the medical bay since they brought her aboard. Something about her pulled at him in ways he could not explain. His crew was starting to worry about him. "Captain," Paul said quietly, "maybe you should get some rest. You've been here for almost 72 hours straight." "I'm fine," Jake replied, though he knew he was not. Every time he tried to leave the medical bay, he felt an urgent need to return. It was as if the woman in the pod was calling to him somehow. On the morning of the 4th day, everything changed. Jake was reviewing Alex's latest biological reports when alarms started going off throughout the medical bay. The stasis pod systems were failing. The power levels are dropping fast, Lisa shouted as she ran to the pod's control panel. Whatever is keeping her alive is breaking down. Alex rushed to his scanners. Her vital signs are becoming unstable. If we don't do something soon, she's going to die. Jake felt panic rise in his chest. He could not let her die, not when they had just found her. Can we wake her up safely? I don't know, Alex replied honestly. The pod systems are too alien. I can't predict what will happen if we try to bring her out of stasis. But if we don't try, she dies anyway, Jake said. Lisa looked at the failing systems. The pod has some kind of emergency revival sequence. I think I can activate it, but there's no way to know if it will work. Jake made the decision without hesitation. Do it. Lisa's hands moved over the alien controls, following patterns that seemed to make sense even though they had never seen this technology before. The pod began to hum with new energy, and the blue liquid inside started to drain away. The woman's eyes opened. They were the most beautiful eyes Jake had ever seen, a deep purple color that seemed to hold starlight. She looked around the medical bay in confusion. Then her gaze found Jake's face. When their eyes met, something electric passed between them. She tried to speak, but only made sounds that meant nothing to human ears. The language was musical and flowing, completely unlike any Earth language. Alex immediately began recording everything she said. Easy, Jake said softly, moving closer to the pod. You're safe. We're not going to hurt you. The woman looked at Jake with growing intensity. She struggled to sit up in the pod, reaching out toward him with one pale blue hand. When Jake took her hand to help her, she gripped it tightly and would not let go. She seems to trust you, Alex observed. That's interesting. Over the next few days, the alien woman recovered her strength. She walked with natural grace and seemed to understand that Jake and his crew were trying to help her. She wore simple clothes that Lisa had provided, but she moved with the bearing of someone used to command. Alex worked tirelessly on translation, using the ship's most advanced computers to analyze her language patterns. The breakthrough came. When the woman started pointing at objects and saying their names in her language, she was trying to teach them. Her name is Lyra, Alex announced after a week of constant work. At least that's the closest I can get to the pronunciation, and she calls her people the Ethani. Jake felt something stir in his memory when he heard the name Lyra, though he was sure he had never heard it before. The woman, Lyra, seemed to grow more excited each day as the translation improved. She spent most of her time near Jake, following him around the ship when she was allowed to leave the medical bay. She's learning our language incredibly fast, Alex told Jake. Her brain seems designed for rapid language acquisition. I think she'll be able to speak basic English within another week. The first real conversation came 10 days after Lyra woke up. She could speak simple sentences, though her accent made the words sound like music. Jake, she said, using his name. For the first time. You found me. Yes, Jake replied. We found your ship. You were sleeping for a very long time. Lyra's purple eyes filled with something that looked like joy mixed with sadness. Long time, yes. My people sleep. Wait for signal. Wait for you. For me? Jake asked, confused. What do you mean? Lyra struggled with the words. My people, Athani, we travel stars long ago. We look for something special. We look for you. Alex leaned forward with interest. You were looking for humans? Not humans, Lyra said slowly. Looking for Jake. Looking for his kind. Special ones. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. I don't understand. How could you be looking for me, specifically? Lyra touched her chest, then pointed at Jake. Same inside, same spirit. Ethani know, always know. The next few days brought more revelations as Lyra's English improved. She told them about the Ethani, a race of explorers who had traveled the galaxy millions of years ago. They had been searching for something they called the resonance, a special quality that only appeared in rare beings. "We plant seeds," Lyra explained during one of their conversations. "Not real seeds. Life seeds. In many worlds, many species. We help life grow in special ways." "You mean you influenced evolution on other planets?" Alex asked, his scientific mind racing. "Yes," Lyra nodded. "We guide, not control. Help life become what it needs to become. Then we wait and watch." Jake struggled to understand. "But why? What were you looking for?" Lyra looked directly into his eyes. "Looking for ones who can fight the darkness. Looking for ones who can save galaxy." She went on to explain that her people had discovered a great threat coming from the dark spaces between galaxies, something that consumed life itself and turned entire civilizations into empty husks. The Ethani had scattered across the stars, each group watching over the species they had helped develop, waiting for the right beings to emerge. "Jake's people, humans, you are special," Lyra said with growing excitement. "You have what we need. You have the strength to fight what comes." "What makes humans so special?" Jake asked. "You never give up," Lyra replied. "Other species, they break when darkness comes. Humans, you fight even when there is no hope. You create beauty even in terrible times. You are what galaxy needs." The days passed. Jake found himself drawn to Lyra in ways that went beyond curiosity. She was intelligent, brave, and had a way of looking at him that made him feel like he was the most important person in the universe. The feeling seemed to be mutual. Lyra stayed close to him whenever possible and became agitated when duty called him away from her. "There's something else," Lyra told him one evening when they were alone in the observation lounge, looking out at the stars. "Ethani and humans, we are compatible, not just as friends, as partners." Jake felt his heart rate increase. "What do you mean?" "My people knew this would happen. Knew that when we found the right human, there would be connection." "Deep connection." She paused, searching for the right words. "You feel it too, yes? The pull between us?" Jake could not deny it. From the moment he had first seen her in the stasis pod, he had felt connected to her in ways that defied explanation. "Yes, I feel it." Lyra smiled, the first truly happy expression he had seen from her. "This is good. This is how it should be. But Jake, you must know, the darkness I told you about, it comes soon. My ship, it was watching, waiting. Now that I am awake, others will wake too. Galaxy will know that time has come." "What time?" Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Time for final battle," Lyra replied. "Time for humans to prove they are what we hoped they would be. Time for you to lead your people to victory or watch everything die." Jake stared out at the peaceful stars and tried to process what Lyra was telling him. Humanity had been alone in the galaxy for so long, and now they were not only not alone, but they were apparently crucial to the survival of all life itself. "How long do we have?" he asked. Lyra's expression grew serious. "Not long. Maybe months, maybe less. The Watchers are waking, the signals are being sent. Soon, very soon, the darkness will know that you have been found." She took his hand in hers, and Jake felt warmth spread through his entire body. Whatever was happening between them was beyond anything he had ever experienced. "But tonight," Lyra said softly, "tonight we have peace. Tonight we have each other. Tomorrow we prepare for..." Jake could not sleep that night. Lyra's words about the coming darkness kept running through his mind. He walked the quiet corridors of his ship, thinking about everything she had told him. When he reached the observation deck, he found her there, staring out at the stars. "You cannot sleep either," Lyra said without turning around. "Too much to think about," Jake replied, joining her at the large window. "This darkness you mentioned, tell me more about it." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried sadness that seemed to come from deep in her soul. "They are called the Devourers. They come from the empty space between galaxies, where no stars shine. They are not alive like us, but they are not dead either." She turned to face Jake, and he could see fear in her purple eyes. "Long ago, my people lived in a great civilization. We had cities that floated between stars and ships that could travel faster than light. We thought we were the masters of the galaxy." "What happened?" Jake asked, though he suspected the answer would be terrible. "The Devourers came," Lyra said simply. "At first we thought they were just another species we could talk to and learn from. We were wrong. They do not want to communicate or trade or share knowledge. They only want to consume." She moved closer to the window, pressing her hand against the cool surface. "They have a weapon that turns living beings into empty shells. The body lives, but the mind dies. The person becomes a servant of the Devourers, helping them spread their infection to others." Jake felt cold fear creep up his spine. "How do they do it?" "They send out waves of energy that attack the mind directly. Most species cannot resist it. The energy finds the parts of the brain that make someone who they are and destroys those parts. What remains is just a body that follows orders." "But you escaped," Jake pointed out. "Some of us did," Lyra nodded. "My people discovered that the Devourer weapon works differently on different species. We learned that certain genetic patterns provide resistance. That is when we began the great project." She turned back to Jake, and he saw determination replace the fear in her eyes. "We scattered across the galaxy and found worlds where life was just beginning to evolve. We guided that evolution, not controlling it, but helping it develop the traits that could resist the Devourers." "And humans have those traits?" Jake asked. "Humans have something even better," Lyra replied with excitement. "Your species does not just resist the Devourer weapon, you are completely immune to it. Something about the way human minds work makes it impossible for the Devourers to control you." Jake thought about this. "What makes us different?" "Chaos," Lyra said, surprising him. "Human minds are wonderfully chaotic. You think in ways that other species do not. You can believe contradictory things at the same time. You can change your minds quickly, and you never react to situations the same way twice. The Devourer weapon needs predictable thought patterns to work. Human thought patterns are never predictable." She reached out and took his hand. "There is more. Humans have something my people lost long ago. You have the ability to inspire others. When humans lead, other species follow willingly. When humans fight, other species find courage they did not know they had." "That sounds like a lot of pressure," Jake said. "It is," Lyra agreed. "But Jake, you must understand this is why I was searching for you specifically. Not just any human, but you." "I still don't understand that part," Jake admitted. Lyra smiled, but there was sadness in it. "My people have abilities that humans do not have yet. We can see connections between living things, like invisible threads that bind all life together. These connections are strongest between beings who are meant to be together." She squeezed his hand gently. "From the moment my people first guided human evolution, we could see the threads that would connect us to certain humans in the future. You have been connected to me across millions of years, Jake. I have been dreaming of you since I was a child." Jake stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Lyra asked. "You felt something when you first saw me in the stasis pod, did you not? Something you could not explain?" Jake had to admit she was right. The connection he felt to her was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if he had been incomplete his whole life and only now felt whole. The Ethani and humans were always meant to be partners, Lyra continued. Together we are stronger than either species alone. Your chaos and our order, your inspiration and our knowledge, your courage and our wisdom. What do you need me to do? Jake asked. First, we must wake the other Ethani, Lyra replied. They are sleeping near other human colonies and alien species throughout the galaxy. When they sense that I am awake and have found you, they will begin to wake as well. She moved to the communications console in the observation lounge and began working with the controls. My ship had the ability to send signals across the galaxy instantly. Your ship does not have this technology yet, but I can modify your systems. Jake watched as Lyra's hands moved over the controls with practiced ease. She was clearly brilliant, understanding human technology as quickly as she had learned the human language. There, she said after an hour of work, the signal is sent. Within days, Ethani throughout the galaxy will begin to wake. They will contact the species they have been watching and begin to prepare them for what is coming. How long before the Devourers arrive? Jake asked. Lyra checked readings on her modified console. The nearest scout ships are already in the outer edges of the galaxy. They move slowly because they stop to consume everything in their path. I estimate 6 months before they reach human space. 6 months to prepare humanity for a war against an enemy that had destroyed advanced civilizations. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. We need to get back to Earth immediately, he said. The government and military need to know what's coming. Yes, Lyra agreed. But Jake, you must be prepared for the fact that many humans will not believe us at first. They will think this is a trick or that I am lying. Then we'll have to convince them, Jake replied. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks at maximum speed. During that time, Lyra taught Jake everything she could about Ethani technology and the coming war. She showed him how to modify human weapons to be more effective against the Devourers and explained the weaknesses that her people had discovered in their ancient enemy. The Devourers are not truly immortal, she explained during one of their sessions. They can be destroyed, but it takes enormous amounts of energy focused in very specific ways. Your nuclear weapons could work, but only if they are modified with Ethani technology. She also taught him about the galactic community that humanity had been isolated from. There were dozens of intelligent species scattered across the galaxy, most of them descendants of worlds that the Ethani had influenced millions of years ago. Not all of them have the immunity that humans possess, Lyra said, but all of them have some resistance to the Devourer weapon. Together we can form an alliance that might be strong enough to push back the invasion. As Earth grew larger on their main screen, Jake felt both hope and fear battling in his chest. Hope because humanity would not face this threat alone, and fear because he knew that convincing Earth's leaders would be the hardest battle of all. Are you ready for this? Lyra asked as they approached Earth's orbital defense platforms. As ready as anyone can be for the end of the world, Jake replied. Lyra moved closer to him and took his hand. Not the end, Jake. The beginning. Humanity is about to take its place as the leaders of the galactic community. Your people will become legends that are told around the fires of 1,000 worlds. If we survive, Jake pointed out. You will survive, Lyra said with complete confidence. I have seen it in the connections that bind all life. Humanity's greatest victories are still ahead of you. Jake looked at this amazing woman who had appeared in his life and changed everything. In just a few weeks, she had become more important to him than anything else in the universe. The thought of losing her to the coming war was almost unbearable. Lyra, he said quietly. Whatever happens, I want you to know that meeting you has been the best thing that ever happened to me. She smiled and leaned closer to him. Jake Morrison, you have no idea how long I have waited to hear you say that. You have no idea how long I have waited for you. As their ship approached Earth, Jake knew that everything was about to change. Humanity's time of isolation was over. The real test was just beginning. The meeting with Earth's leaders was even worse than Jake had expected. He sat in the underground conference room in Geneva, surrounded by politicians, generals, and scientists who looked at Lyra with suspicion and fear. Admiral Patricia Wells, the head of Earth's Colonial Defense Force, had been asking the same questions for 2 hours. "Captain Morrison, you expect us to believe that this alien woman represents a friendly species that has been guiding human evolution for millions of years?" Admiral Wells asked for the 3rd time. "That's exactly what I'm telling you," Jake replied, trying to keep his patience. "Lyra and her people are trying to help us prepare for an invasion that will destroy everything if we're not ready." "An invasion? By creatures from outside the galaxy that can control minds," said Dr. Catherine Ross, Earth's chief scientist. "Captain, do you understand how this sounds?" Lyra had remained silent through most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. "I understand your doubt. If someone had told my people this story before we faced the Devourers ourselves, we would not have believed it either." She stood and moved to the large display screen at the front of the room. With quick movements, she activated it and began showing images that made everyone in the room fall silent. The pictures showed beautiful cities, floating in space, then the same cities dark and empty, filled with the twisted forms of beings that no longer seemed alive. "This was my home world," Lyra said quietly. 5 million of my people lived here. The Devourers took them all in a single day. The images changed to show massive black ships that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved through space like living things, leaving nothing but emptiness behind them. "These are the scout ships," Lyra continued. "The main fleet is 1,000 times larger. They are already in your galaxy, moving toward human space." General Frank Stone, the head of Earth's military forces, leaned forward. "Even if we believe you, what can we do? Humanity has never fought a war on this scale." "You will not fight alone," Lyra replied. "Throughout the galaxy, other Athani are waking and contacting the species they have been watching. An alliance is forming." She touched the display controls again, and the screen showed star maps with dozens of worlds marked in different colors. "These are the worlds where our allies live," she explained. "Some of them have technology more advanced than yours. Others have abilities that will be useful in the coming war. All of them have some resistance to the Devourer weapon." Admiral Wells stood up and walked closer to the display. "What kind of abilities?" "The Zentari can manipulate gravity itself," Lyra said, pointing to one of the marked worlds. "The Kethvar have mental powers that can disrupt enemy communications. The Oshai can survive in environments that would kill most other species." Jake watched the faces of the Earth leaders as they studied the star map. He could see them beginning to believe, but he also saw fear growing in their eyes as they realized the scope of what humanity was facing. "How do we contact these allies?" Dr. Ross asked. "The signals have already been sent," Lyra replied. "But we must also prepare Earth's defenses. Your weapons will need to be modified with Ethani technology to be effective against the Devourers." Over the next several hours, Lyra shared technological innovations that would have taken humanity centuries to develop on their own. She showed them how to create energy shields that could protect entire planets, weapons that could punch through the Devourers' dark hulls, and communication systems that could coordinate battles across multiple star systems. "The most important thing," Lyra said as the meeting was ending, "is that humans must lead this alliance. Your species has the immunity to the Devourer weapon and the ability to inspire others. Without human leadership, the alliance will fail." Admiral Wells looked directly at Jake. "Captain Morrison, I'm placing you in command of the new Galactic Defense Force. Your first mission is to make contact with these alien allies and begin coordinating our response." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on him like a mountain. "I'll do whatever is necessary." "I know you will," Admiral Wells replied. The survival of our species depends on it. The next 3 months were the busiest of Jake's life. The Horizon's Edge was upgraded with Athani technology and became the flagship of humanity's first interstellar fleet. Jake traveled to dozens of worlds, meeting with alien species that had never seen a human before. The first contact with the Zentari was memorable. They were tall, thin beings with silver skin who lived on a world with gravity twice that of Earth. Their leader, Veltar IX, communicated through harmonic vibrations that Lyra translated. He says that his people have been waiting for this moment for 3,000 years, Lyra told Jake after their first meeting. They are honored to fight alongside humans. The Kethvar were even stranger. Beings of pure energy who lived inside crystalline structures. They could project their thoughts directly into other minds, which made Jake uncomfortable until he got used to it. Your species fascinates us, the Kethvar leader communicated directly to Jake's mind. Your thoughts move in patterns we have never seen before. This chaos you possess is indeed a powerful weapon. Each species Jake met brought unique abilities to the Alliance, but they all looked to humanity for leadership. It was exactly as Lyra had predicted. When humans spoke, the other species listened. When humans showed courage, the others found courage within themselves. But as the Alliance grew stronger, so did the signs that the Devourers were getting closer. Long-range sensors detected the destruction of entire star systems at the galaxy's edge. Refugee ships began arriving at human colonies, carrying survivors from worlds that had been consumed. Jake interviewed some of the refugees and heard stories that gave him nightmares. The Devourers did not just kill their enemies. They corrupted them. Families were turned against each other as the mind weapons spread through populations like a plague. They take everything that makes you who you are, one refugee told Jake through tears. Your memories, your personality, your love for others. All of it dies, but your body keeps walking around, serving them. The worst part was that some of the refugees had been partially affected by the Devourer weapon before escaping. They remembered being controlled, remembered watching their own hands perform terrible acts while their minds screamed helplessly inside their heads. We have to stop them, Jake told Lyra after a particularly difficult interview. We can't let them do this to anyone else. We will stop them, Lyra replied with determination. The Alliance grows stronger every day. We now have the support of 47 different species and more join us each week. But Jake could see the worry in her eyes. The Devourers were moving faster than expected, and the Alliance was still not ready. Earth's factories were working around the clock to produce ships and weapons with Athani technology, but there was not enough time. How close are they now? Jake asked. Lyra checked the latest reports from their scout ships. The main fleet will reach human space in 6 weeks, maybe less. Jake felt his heart sink. 6 weeks to prepare for a war that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. It was not enough time. There is something else, Lyra said quietly. Something I have not told you yet. Jake looked at her, afraid of what new terrible news. The Devourer fleet was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. Thousands of black ships emerged from dark space, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. They moved with horrible purpose, absorbing the light of nearby stars and leaving nothing but emptiness behind them. My God, whispered Lieutenant Hayes from his sensor station. There are so many of them. Jake watched the enemy fleet approach and felt fear trying to grip his heart. The combined Alliance fleet numbered in the hundreds, but the Devourers had thousands of ships. It should have been hopeless, but Jake refused to let despair take hold. All ships, maintain formation, Jake ordered over the fleet communication system. Remember your training and trust in your allies. Today we make history. The first wave of Devourer ships reached the outer edge of the solar system and immediately began their attack. Waves of dark energy lashed out from their hulls, seeking to corrupt the minds of everyone in the Alliance fleet. Jake felt the attack hit him like a physical blow. Cold darkness tried to pour into his mind, seeking to destroy everything that made him who he was. But the attack found nothing to grip. His human chaotic thinking patterns made him completely immune to the Devourer weapon. Around the fleet, other species were not so lucky. Some of the alien crews began to scream as the mind weapon partially affected them, but the Athani technology in their ships provided enough protection to keep them functional. "First contact in 30 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Jake looked at Lyra, who was monitoring the Athani systems they would need for their mental link. "Are you ready?" "Not yet," she replied. "We need to wait until we can reach their command ships. The disruption has to hit their central control network." The space battle that followed was the most intense conflict in galactic history. Alliance ships darted between the massive Devourer vessels, using their superior speed and maneuverability to avoid the worst of the enemy fire. Modified human weapons tore holes in the dark hulls, while Zentari gravity manipulators crushed entire enemy squadrons. But for every Devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The enemy fleet seemed endless, wave after wave of vessels emerging from dark space to join the battle. "We're losing too many ships," reported Admiral Wells from her command vessel. "The outer defense line is collapsing." Jake could see the truth of her words on his tactical display. Despite fighting with incredible courage, the Alliance fleet was being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. They needed to end this quickly or lose everything. "Lyra, how close do we need to be?" Jake asked. "Close enough to touch their command ship," she replied. "The mental link needs direct contact to work properly." Jake made a decision that would either save the galaxy or doom it. "All ships, follow the horizon's edge. We're making a direct assault on the enemy flagship." "Captain, that's suicide," Paul Davis warned from his security station. "Maybe," Jake replied, "but it's the only chance we have." The horizon's edge led a desperate charge through the heart of the Devourer fleet. Alliance ships followed, creating a spear of light that pierced through the darkness. Enemy fire rained down on them from all sides, and Jake watched good ships and brave crews die to clear a path forward. The Devourer command ship was a massive structure that looked more like a living creature than a machine. It pulsed with dark energy and seemed to absorb the life force from everything around it. Getting close to it felt like approaching death itself. "Ramming speed," Jake ordered as they closed the final distance. "Jake, wait," Lyra said, grabbing his arm. "Before we do this, before we link our minds, I need you to know something." "What?" Jake asked, never taking his eyes off their target. "I love you," she said simply. "Not because you're the human I was meant to find, not because we're genetically compatible, but because of who you are. Your courage, your kindness, your refusal to give up hope even when everything seems lost." Jake turned to look at her. This amazing woman who had changed his life and given him a purpose beyond anything he had ever imagined. "I love you too, Lyra. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone." The horizon's edge struck the Devourer. Command ship with tremendous force, penetrating deep into its hull. Alarms screamed throughout both vessels as they locked together in a deadly embrace. Devourer warriors began flooding into Jake's ship, twisted beings that had once been living creatures from a dozen different species. "Now," Lyra said, placing her hands on Jake's temples. "Link with me now." Jake felt Lyra's mind touch his, and suddenly he was experiencing everything she had ever felt or thought. He saw her childhood on the floating cities of her homeworld, felt her grief when the Devourers destroyed everything she had ever known, and experienced the long centuries of searching for him across the galaxy. At the same time, Lyra was seeing his memories. His lonely childhood as an orphan, his determination to explore the stars, his instant recognition of her in the stasis pod, and his growing love for her during their time together. But beyond the personal memories, their linked minds began to generate something new. Jake's chaotic human thought patterns combined with Lyra's ordered Ethani consciousness to create a frequency that had never existed before in the universe. The effect on the Devourer hive mind was immediate and devastating. Throughout their fleet, the mental control that bound their servants began to break down. Beings who had been corrupted for centuries suddenly remembered who they used to be. On the command ship around them, Jake could hear the Devourers screaming as their network of enslaved minds collapsed. The dark energy that powered their ships began to fluctuate wildly. "It's working!" Lyra gasped, blood flowing from her nose as the mental strain pushed her to her limits. "I can feel their control breaking." Jake's head felt like it was splitting, apart. But he held on to the link with everything he had. Around them, the battle was turning. Alliance ships that had been on the verge of defeat suddenly found themselves facing enemies that were no longer coordinated. Throughout the Devourer, fleet ships began to turn on each other as their crews regained their free will and realized what they had been forced to do. The organized assault became chaos as thousands of newly freed beings sought revenge against their former masters. But the mental link was destroying both Jake and Lyra. Jake could feel his consciousness beginning to fade as the strain of maintaining the frequency took its toll. Beside him, Lyra was barely conscious, her purple eyes dim with exhaustion. "I can't hold it much longer," Jake said through gritted teeth. "You don't need to," Lyra replied weakly. "Look." Jake looked at the tactical display and saw that the Devourer fleet was in complete disarray. Ships were exploding as their freed crews sabotaged them from within, while others simply drifted powerlessly as their command systems failed. The few remaining pure Devourer vessels were retreating back toward dark space, their invasion broken by the collapse of their hive mind. "We did it," Jake said in amazement. "We actually did it." But as he spoke, he realized that Lyra was no longer responding. The strain of the mental link had pushed her beyond her limits. Her life force was fading fast. "No," Jake said, pulling her close. "Don't leave me. Not now." Lyra's eyes opened one last time, and she looked at him with all the love she had carried across the centuries. "Jake," she whispered, so quietly he had to lean close to hear her. "I'm here," he said, tears streaming down his face. "At last," she breathed, "I found you." She hugged him then, using the last of her strength to pull him close. Jake felt her life force flowing into him, her final gift to ensure that he would survive to see the new galaxy they had created together. "I found you too," Jake whispered back, but she was already gone. Jake held her still form as the battle raged around them, feeling a part of his soul die with her. But even in his grief, he could feel something else. The mental link had left traces of itself in his mind, and through it, he could sense the thoughts and feelings of beings throughout the galaxy. The Devourers were defeated, their servants freed, and their fleet broken. But more than that, the alliance that Lyra had helped him build was stronger than ever. Dozens of species that had never trusted each other before were now working together as true partners. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as inspirers, the species that others looked to for leadership and hope. And at the center of it all was the love between a human captain and an Ethani explorer that had saved everything. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his damaged ship, holding the woman who had given him the stars, and watching as a new age began. The galaxy would remember this day forever, and it would remember her. In the years that followed, as humanity led the effort to rebuild worlds destroyed by the Devourers and helped integrate the freed populations into galactic society, Jake never forgot Lyra's sacrifice. He carried her memory with him to every world he visited and every negotiation he conducted. The horizon's edge became a legend, the ship that had carried humanity to its destiny among the stars. And Jake Morrison became the first human to serve as Supreme Commander of the Galactic Alliance, a position he held with honor for the rest of his long life. But in quiet moments, when he stood alone looking out at the stars she had shown him, Jake could swear he still felt her presence, in the neural pathways the link had created, in the genetic legacy they had shared, and